Commander stood in the docking bay of the command station and stared at the human ship before him. The vessel looked wrong. Its hull was smooth where it should have been angular. Its weapons placement seemed inefficient. Everything about it suggested a species that did not understand proper military design. Was a warrior. He had been a warrior for 47 years. His crystalline skin had turned from pale blue to deep sapphire over decades of service. Among his people, he was considered one of the finest tactical minds in the Empire. He had fought in 16 major conflicts across 9 star systems. He had never lost a battle. He had never felt fear. They did not feel fear. Their minds were different from most species. In battle, they felt only cold calculation. They saw numbers, probabilities, tactical advantages. Fear was something they read about in alien psychology texts but never experienced themselves. Now the Empire had formed an alliance with humanity. The United Human Systems Federation wanted military advisors. They wanted to understand why this strange species had won 3 consecutive wars against numerically superior enemies. So they sent. The airlock opened with a hiss. Stepped through, ducking his 7-foot frame under the human-sized doorway. Inside, 3 humans waited for him. The first was a man of perhaps 50 human years. His hair was black mixed with gray. His face had deep lines around the eyes. He wore a simple uniform with captain's insignia. He extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. "Commander, I'm Captain. Welcome aboard the Indomitable." Studied the hand for a moment before clasping it. The human grip was firm but weak compared to strength. Soft skin, fragile bones underneath. How did such creatures survive combat? "This is Lieutenant Jinnah, my tactical officer," said, gesturing to a woman with sharp eyes and her black hair pulled back tightly. "And this is Sergeant, our combat team leader." Was shorter than but broader. Scars ran along his jaw. He nodded at but did not smile. At least this one looked like he understood war. "We're honored to have you with us," said. "Your reputation precedes you. 47 years of service, 16 major campaigns, 0 defeats. Impressive." "It is simply the result of proper tactical analysis," replied. His voice resonated in the narrow human corridor. "Emotion and chance are removed from my calculations. Victory follows naturally." Jinnah raised one eyebrow. "No emotion at all." "No, my people do not experience emotions in the way other species do. We are aware of them conceptually, but we do not feel them." "Not even happiness when you win?" asked. "I experience satisfaction that my calculations were correct, but not what you would call happiness." And Jinnah exchanged a look that could not interpret. Humans did that often, he had read. They communicated through facial expressions and subtle gestures. It seemed inefficient. Spoke for the first time. "Must be peaceful, not feeling anything." "It is efficient," corrected. "Right, efficient." His mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but it did not reach his eyes. Led through the ship. The corridors were narrower than vessels. The walls were painted in soft colors instead of left as bare metal. There were pictures and decorations in common areas. One room had what appeared to be living plants growing in containers. "Why do you waste resources on decorations?" asked. "They're not decorations," said. "They're reminders of home. They keep morale high." "Morale is irrelevant if tactical planning is sound." "Is it?" Jinnah asked from behind him. "We find that people fight better when they have something to fight for, something to remind them why they're here." Did not respond. He was beginning to understand why the Empire found humans difficult to analyze. They seemed to deliberately introduce inefficiency into their systems. In the mess hall, met more of the crew. There was the medical officer, a small woman with gentle hands and a constant smile. There was Minu, the chief engineer, a man who spoke quickly and moved his hands while talking. There was Sara, the pilot, a young woman who looked too small to control a warship but apparently did so with high marks. They all greeted warmly. They asked questions about his service record, his opinions on various topics. They offered him food and drink. They seemed genuinely interested in him as an individual rather than as a military resource. It was strange. During the evening meal, a young Marine named sat next to. The human was perhaps 25 years old, with an eager face and quick smile. "Commander, is it true your people can see in the dark? Our visual spectrum is broader than yours. We process light differently." "That's amazing. What about the stories that you can survive in vacuum for short periods?" "Our crystalline structure allows us to seal our bodies temporarily. Approximately 4 minutes in hard vacuum before cellular damage becomes critical." "Incredible." Eyes were wide. "You must be incredible fighters." "We are adequate." "Adequate, sir? I read your service record. You're legendary." Studied the young human. "Why do you care about my service record? It has no bearing on your own performance." Seemed confused by the question. "Well, because it's interesting, because I want to learn from you, because you're amazing." "I am not amazing. I am simply experienced." "That's what makes you amazing, sir." Did not understand this logic, but seemed sincere. The young Marine spent the next hour telling stories about his home on Earth, about his family, about why he joined the military, about his hopes for the future. None of it seemed relevant to their mission, but seemed to feel it was important to share. Later, in his assigned quarters, reviewed his observations. The humans were inefficient. They wasted time on social bonding. They decorated their warship. They formed emotional attachments to each other. They made decisions based on feelings rather than pure calculation. By every logical metric, they should be poor warriors. Yet they won battles, they won wars, they had earned respect across the galaxy. Could not reconcile this contradiction. The data did not match his analysis. He added a note to his report for the Empire. "Humans are paradoxical. Further observation required." That night the ship's alarms woke everyone. Captain's voice came over the speakers. "All hands to stations. We've received a distress call from the mining colony at Epsilon 7. Attack in progress. Multiple hive ships detected. We're the closest vessel. ETA 4 hours." Arrived at the bridge quickly. Was studying the tactical display. Jinnah was running calculations. Was already in his combat armor. "What are our numbers?" asked. Jinnah looked up. One destroyer against preliminary scan showing at least 50 attack ships, more arriving every minute. "And you intend to engage?" "There are 3,000 civilians at that colony," said quietly. "The logical action is to call for reinforcements and evacuate if possible." "Reinforcements are 2 days away. The colony doesn't have 2 days." "Then the logical action is to preserve this vessel and crew for battles we can win." Looked at him. "The logical action, yes. But you will not do the logical thing." "No, Commander, we will not." "Why?" Turned back to the display. "Because they're scared, because they're calling for help, because we can try." Calculated the survival probability. It was 2.7%. "You will likely die." "Probably," agreed. "This is not logical." "No," said, "it's not." Jinnah smiled slightly. "Welcome to serving with humans, Commander." The Indomitable accelerated toward Epsilon 7, watched the crew prepare for battle. They checked weapons. They said prayers. Some wrote letters they called just in case. Others made jokes and laughed nervously. Did not understand. They knew they would probably die, yet they chose to engage anyway. For the first time, Commander wondered if perhaps they did not understand war as well as they thought. The humans were teaching him something new. He did not yet know what it was. But he suspected he would learn soon enough. The Indomitable traveled through the black for 4 hours. Spent that time observing the human crew as they prepared for battle. What he saw confused him. In the training bay, ran combat drills with his Marine squad, watched from the observation deck. The simulation was simple: breach a fortified position, neutralize targets, secure the objective. Standard military exercise. But the humans did it wrong. They wasted time. When one Marine went down in the simulation, the others stopped to provide covering fire while someone helped the wounded soldier. They called out warnings to each other constantly. They maintained visual contact with their squad mates even when it meant taking inefficient angles of approach. Ran the numbers. They could complete the objective 18% faster if they simply left wounded behind and focused on the mission. But they never did. After the drill approached, your tactics are inefficient. Wiped sweat from his face. How so? You waste resources retrieving wounded during active combat. In 17 simulations, your team prioritized wounded extraction over objective completion. That's not wasting resources, said. That's making sure everyone comes home. But it reduces your probability of mission success. Does it? Looked at his squad. They were helping each other remove gear, laughing about mistakes made during the drill. See over there, 3 months ago he took shrapnel saving another Marine. Spent 2 weeks in medical. Know what happened? Waited. Every single person in this squad visited him every day, brought him food, told him stories, kept him company. When he came back, he was stronger, more focused. He knows we won't leave him behind. Met's eyes. That's not inefficiency, Commander. That's why we fight harder. Did not understand, but he noted the information. In the medical bay was preparing trauma supplies. She moved efficiently, but she was also singing. A soft melody in a language did not recognize. Why do you sing? He asked. Looked up, not startled by his sudden appearance. It calms me, helps me focus. Focus would be better achieved through silence and concentration. For you, maybe. She returned to her work, still humming. For me, this is how I concentrate. Music helps me remember I'm human, reminds me what I'm fighting to protect. You fight to protect music. I fight to protect the things that make life worth living. Music is one of them. She organized medical into portable packs. You probably think that's silly. I think it is illogical. Same thing to you, I suppose, she smiled. But logic isn't everything, Commander. We learned that a long time ago. In the engineering bay, Minyu was talking to his equipment. Watched as the human engineer patted a power conduit and spoke to it like a living thing. Come on, beautiful, just a little more output. I know you can do it. The machine cannot hear you, observed. Minyu jumped, then laughed. Commander, you move too quietly for someone so tall. The machine cannot hear you, repeated. I know that. Minyu returned to his adjustments, but she responds better when I talk nice to her. That is impossible. Machines do not respond to verbal encouragement. Maybe not machines, but human equipment. She's temperamental, you treat her right, she treats you right. He patted the conduit again. Been with this old girl for 3 years. She's gotten me through 12 engagements. We understand each other. Scan the conduit. It was operating at 94% efficiency, standard for its age. There is no evidence of improved performance based on your verbal interaction. Evidence isn't everything, Minyu said, echoing sentiment. Sometimes you just know things. Found this attitude pervasive among the humans. They believed in things without evidence. They made decisions based on feelings. They treated machines like living beings and each other like family. It should not work. But somehow it did. Later in the mess hall, sat alone reviewing tactical data. Approached with 2 trays of food. Mind if I join you, sir? Gestured to the seat across from him. Sat and pushed 1 tray toward the commander. I wasn't sure what you'd like, so I brought a variety. Humans need to eat before battle, keeps our strength up. I do not require sustenance for another 18 hours. Oh, well, do you mind if I eat? Proceed. Ate quietly for a moment, then spoke. Sir, can I ask you something? You may ask. What's it like? Not feeling fear, I mean. Everyone's pretty nervous about this fight. The odds aren't great, but you seem completely calm. I am analyzing probable outcomes and optimal responses. Fear would not improve my analysis. But doesn't that make it lonely, not feeling anything? The question surprised. How would it be lonely? Well, search for words. When we're scared together, we help each other through it. When we're happy together, we share it. Emotions connect us. Without them, aren't you just alone, even when you're with others? Considered this. Among his people there was camaraderie, there was respect, there was satisfaction in shared victory, but was right about one thing, did not bond the way humans did. They cooperated efficiently, but they did not form the deep connections he observed among the human crew. I have not considered that I might be alone, said finally. I simply am. That's sad, said softly. It is efficient. Yeah, took another bite, but still sad. 2 hours before arrival at Epsilon 7, Captain called a briefing. The entire command staff gathered, along with Marine squad. Jinnah brought up the tactical display. It was worse than initial reports. Current scan shows 93 attack ships in system, more arriving every few minutes. They're swarming the colony. Shields are holding but won't last long. Colony population, asked. 3,042 civilians, mostly miners and their families. No military vessels. Their security team has small arms only. Studied the display. We can't fight 93 ships. No, agreed. But we can buy time. Get the civilians loaded on their transport ships while we keep them busy. That's suicide, Minyu said quietly. Yes, said, probably. Silence filled the room. Watched the humans process this information. He saw Sora's hands clench, saw close her eyes briefly, saw swallow hard. Then spoke, how do we do it? Not if how. Smiled grimly. Jinnah's worked out an approach. We come in fast, hit their command cluster, then run interference while the transports launch. Keep them focused on us. They'll tear us apart, Jinnah said. But it should give the colony 20, maybe 30 minutes. That's enough time if they move fast. Probability of survival, asked. Jinnah looked at him, 2.7%. This is not acceptable. No, agreed. It's not, but it's what we have. Stood, I must object. This plan violates basic military doctrine. You sacrifice a valuable military asset and trained crew for minimal gain. The logical course is. Commander's voice was soft but firm. I know it's not logical, I know the numbers, but those are people down there. 3,000 people who are calling for help. They are strangers. They have no strategic value. Their deaths would not significantly impact the war effort. They're not strangers to me, said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. The young Marine's face was pale but determined. My sister lives on Epsilon 7. She married a miner 2 years ago. They have a baby daughter, 6 months old. The room was very quiet. So those aren't just numbers to me, continued. That's my family. And even if they weren't, even if I didn't know anyone down there, they're human. They're ours. We don't leave our own behind. Looked around the room, saw the same determination on every face. They knew they would probably die. They knew the logic argued against it. They simply did not care. This is irrational, said. Yes, agreed. Welcome to humanity, Commander. We stopped being rational about our own a long time ago. Maybe that makes us fools, but it makes us human. Sora spoke for the first time. I can get us in close. Low approach through the asteroid field. They won't see us until we're right on top of them. Good, said. Prep your squad for possible ground deployment. If those transports need cover, you'll provide it. Understood. Minyu, I need every bit of power you can give me. Overclock everything. She'll give you everything she's got, Captain. Prep medical for heavy casualties. Already done. Looked at, you're not required to join this engagement, Commander. As an observer, you can take a shuttle back to space before we enter the combat zone. Every human in the room looked at, waiting. Calculated again, ran every scenario. The numbers did not change. This was almost certainly a death sentence. I will remain, he said. Why? Asked, genuinely curious. Did not have a logical answer, so he said the truth. Because I do not yet understand you, and I wish to understand before I die. Smiled, a real smile despite his fear. That's the most human thing you've said since you got here, sir. The briefing ended. The crew moved to their stations, went to the bridge and stood beside Jinnah at tactical. 1 hour until contact. 1 hour until learned what humans became when the odds turned against them. 1 hour until everything changed. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Epsilon 7 system. Through the saw hell. They were everywhere. Hundreds of organic ships that looked like flying insects swarmed around the mining colony. Their weapons flashed green against the colony's failing shields. Explosions bloomed in the black like poisonous flowers. Shields at 40%, Jinnah reported. Her voice was steady, too steady. The colony won't last another hour. Captain sat in his command chair, hands gripped on the armrests. Sora, take us in. Maximum speed. Minu, how's my power? From engineering, Minu's voice crackled over the comm. She's singing, Captain. Everything you need and more. Good, Jinnah, target their command cluster. We go in hard. The ship accelerated, felt the deck vibrate under his feet. Through his link to the ship's sensors, he tracked their approach. The asteroid field Sora had chosen as cover protected them for exactly 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Then they were seen. 30 ships peeled off from the colony assault and turned toward the Indomitable. Their weapon signatures lit up's tactical display like angry red stars. Here they come, Jinnah said softly. All batteries fire at will, ordered. The Indomitable's weapons opened up. Plasma cannons, rail guns, missile pods, all firing in coordinated patterns that had to admit were impressive. Human targeting systems were less efficient than systems, but the humans compensated with volume of fire. 3 ships exploded, then 5 more. The Indomitable wove through return fire like Sora was dancing with the ship, impossible maneuvers that should have torn the hull apart. Sora, how are you doing that? Asked. I'm not thinking, Sora called back, her voice tight with concentration. Thinking is too slow, I'm just feeling it. That made no sense, but it worked. They broke through the initial wave and hit the command cluster. Jinnah had identified 3 larger ships coordinating the attack. The Indomitable targeted all 3 simultaneously. Full spread, ordered, everything we have. The ship shuddered as it released its entire missile payload. 48 warheads streaked toward the command ships. They tried to evade, but they were too big, too slow. 2 command ships exploded. The third took critical damage and began tumbling out of control. Yes, his voice came over the marine channel. That's what I'm talking about. But the celebration was brief. The swarm reacted. 60 ships changed course. All of them turned toward the Indomitable. Oh, Sora said quietly, that's not good. Colony transports are launching, Jinnah reported. They're loading civilians now. They need 20 minutes. Calculated. They would not survive 20 minutes, not against these numbers. Then we give them 20 minutes, said Sora, evasive pattern, keep us alive. What followed was chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. The Indomitable danced. That was the only word could use. Sora flew the ship like it was part of her own body. They dove, spun, accelerated in impossible directions. Weapons fire filled the space around them. Some shots hit. The ship shook with each impact. Shields at 60%, Jinnah called. 40%. 20%. Shields down, armor taking hits. Still they flew, still they fought. Jinna worked her targeting board with hands that never stopped moving. Every shot counted, every target selected for maximum impact. She was not faster than a tactical officer, but she was better. Realized why with surprise. She was not just calculating, she was predicting. She was guessing where they would move next based on pattern recognition that was not pure logic, based on intuition. And her intuition was accurate. Hull breach on deck 7, Minu's voice urgent now, sealing now. Breach on deck 4. Fire in engineering section 2. The ship was dying, they all knew it, but they kept fighting. 11 minutes in made a call. We need ground support. 3 transports are pinned down by ground forces. Copy that, taking my squad down. Hesitated, good luck. Don't need luck, Captain, we're Marines. Watched on tactical as the drop pods launched. 8 pods, 8 humans falling toward a planet swarming with warriors. The math was impossible. They would die. They went anyway. I'm going with them, said suddenly. Looked at him in surprise. You don't have to. I need to understand. Ran for the drop bay, found one last pod, strapped himself in. The pod launched before he could reconsider. The descent was violent. The pod shook like it would tear apart. Then the retro thrusters fired and he hit ground hard enough to crack his crystalline skin. The pod door blew open. Emerged onto a battlefield. The mining colony was burning. Warriors, 6-legged creatures with blade arms and chittering mandibles, swarmed everywhere. The human transports sat in the landing zone, still loading civilians. Between the transports and the stood 8 human Marines. 8 Marines against hundreds of warriors. Found behind a barricade. The sergeant's armor was already damaged, blue blood leaking from a gash in his side. But he was grinning. Commander, welcome to the party. Was on's left, firing in controlled bursts. Glad you could make it, sir. This is insanity, said. Yeah, laughed, actually laughed. Isn't it great? Then the charged. What witnessed next broke something fundamental in his understanding of the universe. The humans changed. Took a blade through his left arm. The limb was severed cleanly. The young Marine screamed, a sound that should have been agony and defeat. Instead, he picked up his severed arm, beat the attacking with it until the creature fell, then continued fighting with his remaining hand. Still laughing. I don't need that arm anyway, shouted. I'm right-handed. A Marine named was pulled down by 3. He activated grenades on his belt and rolled into a cluster of enemies. The explosion cleared 15 meters of landing zone. Transport 2, you're clear. He called over the comm his last words. Fired his plasma rifle mechanically. Decades of training guided his shots, but he was not present in the action. He was observing something impossible. The humans were terrified. He could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices when they called to each other. They were in pain. They were dying. But they did not stop. Minu's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, we've got a problem. 6 capital ships just entered the system. Above them, the Indomitable was surrounded. The ship could not last much longer, but it kept fighting, kept drawing fire away from the planet. A queen emerged from the colony ruins. She was massive, 3 times the size of the warriors. Her blade arms could cut through steel. She moved toward with terrifying speed. Saw her coming. He was out of ammunition. His armor was failing. Blue blood covered his chest. He looked at their eyes met and smiled. Hey, Commander, watch this. Pulled every grenade he had left, wrapped them around his body with his belt, and charged the queen. She caught him, lifted him off the ground with one blade through his chest. Looked down at the blade, looked back up at the queen's face. For humanity, he said. The grenades detonated. The explosion threw backward. When he recovered, there was a crater where and the Queen had been. Something happened too in that moment. For 47 years he had fought in battles. He had seen death. He had calculated risk. He had analyzed enemy behavior. But he had never felt terror. Now he did. Not terror of death. Terror of the humans. These creatures who laughed and told stories and cried and loved, they became something else in battle, something that did not calculate, something that did not stop, something that would die before yielding ground. One armed and bleeding was still fighting, still protecting civilians, still grinning through blood-stained teeth. Come on, you bugs, is that all you've got? Above them, the Indomitable's hull was breaching in multiple places. Could hear Sara crying over the comm, but her hands never wavered on the controls. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry." But she kept flying, kept drawing fire, kept protecting the transports. Jinnah's voice hoarse now, firing last missile battery. "Mean you coughing. Reactor critical. I can give you 2 more minutes before she blows." "Quiet, 2 minutes is enough. The transports are almost loaded." They were dying, all of them dying, and they knew it, and they did not care. Because 3,000 civilians needed 2 more minutes. Fought beside, the young Marine who had shared stories about his home, about his family, about hopes for a future he would not see. "Your sister is on transport 4, found himself saying. "She's safe." Looked at him, tears mixed with blood on his face. "Thank you for telling me that, sir. Really, thank you. You will not survive to see her again." "I know," kept firing, "but she'll survive, that's what matters." The last transport lifted off. 3,042 civilians escaped into space. 3,042 lives saved. The Indomitable's reactor went critical, ordered the crew to the escape pods. On the ground, ran out of ammunition. A warrior charged him, raised his weapon, but he was too far away. Did not run. He drew a knife, a pitiful weapon against a creature 3 times his size, and he charged forward to meet it. The warrior's blade took him through the chest, but's knife found the creature's brain case. They fell together. Stood in the aftermath. Around him, 7 human Marines lay dead. Above him, the Indomitable exploded in a ball of fire. In orbit, the civilian transports jumped to faster-than-light speed. Safe. Was the only survivor. He stood alone on a battlefield covered in human and dead. And for the first time in his life, Commander understood terror. Not the fear of death, the terror of knowing what humans become when they fight for something they love. The terror of knowing that reality had not bothered to tell them they should be dead. The terror of standing beside a species that looked at impossible odds and decided those odds were wrong. One of the escape pods had survived, could reach it, could escape. But he stood there for a long moment looking at its body, at its crater, at the 7 Marines who had given everything. "I understand now," said to the dead. "I understand what you are." A rescue ship found him 6 hours later, military. They extracted him and demanded his report. Sat in the debriefing room and tried to explain what he had seen, tried to put into words the moment when terror was born in his mind. He failed. How do you explain to beings who have never felt fear what it means to be afraid of creatures who fight despite their fear? How do you tell them that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they are strong, but because they are weak and fight anyway? He wrote his report, classified it at the highest level, and requested permanent assignment to human forces. Because if the galaxy ever faced something that terrified even humans, wanted to be there to see what they became when pushed beyond fear itself. The medical station orbiting Prime was quiet, too quiet, sat in a white room that smelled of antiseptic and looked at his hands. His crystalline skin had been repaired, but he could still see the cracks where he had been damaged in battle. For 3 days he had been back. For 3 days he had tried to write his report. The words would not come. How do you explain terror to a species that has never felt it? The door opened. A human entered, not military. She wore civilian clothes and carried a data pad. Her name tag read Cultural Liaison. "Commander, may I sit?" He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat and studied him with kind eyes. "I've read the initial reports," she said softly. "The Indomitable, the battle at Epsilon 7. I'm told you were the only survivor." "Incorrect. 47 humans survived in the escape pods. Captain, Lieutenant Jinnah, Pilot Sora, Medical Officer, others. But on the ground, the Marines. You were the only one who survived the ground battle." "Yes. I'm sorry." Looked at her. "Why do you apologize? You did not cause their deaths." "No, but you lost people you were beginning to care about. That deserves sympathy." We do not form emotional bonds." Smiled sadly. "Is that what you still believe, Commander?" Had no answer. She set down her data pad. "The Empire is confused by your report request. You want permanent assignment to human forces. After witnessing what you saw, most species would request transfer away from humanity. But you want to go deeper in." "I need to understand." "What do you need to understand?" Was quiet for a long time. Then, "I need to understand terror." Lean back. "Tell me what happened, not the tactical report. Tell me what you felt." "I do not feel." "Commander," her voice was gentle but firm, "something changed in you at Epsilon 7. Something happened that your people's language doesn't have words for. Talk to me. Help me understand what you experienced." Looked at his hands again. Saw smile. Heard laughter. Remembered the moment the grenades detonated. "I saw them die," he said slowly. "I have seen death before. I have caused death. I have witnessed it across 16 campaigns, but this was different." "How?" "They knew they would die." He was 25 years old. He knew the mathematics. He understood he would not survive, but he fought anyway. He lost an arm. He picked it up and used it as a weapon, and he laughed. His voice cracked, a sound he did not know he could make. How can a being laugh while dying? "Because he was fighting for something bigger than himself," said. "His sister. He told me his sister was on one of the transports. And she survived. 3,042 civilians survived, but did not. 7 Marines died so strangers could live." "Not strangers," corrected gently. "People, human people. We don't measure worth in strategic value. We measure it in lives. Each one matters." "That is inefficient." "Yes, beautifully, wonderfully inefficient," she smiled. "Commander, can I tell you something about humans? We're afraid all the time, every day, afraid of failure, afraid of loss, afraid of death. But we learned something important: fear doesn't get to win." "I do not understand." "Was terrified when he dropped to that planet. I guarantee you. His hands were probably shaking when he loaded his weapon, but he went anyway. That's what makes us human. We feel the fear and we do it anyway." Thought about this, smiled at me before he died. He smiled and said, "Watch this." "Why?" "Because he wanted you to remember him, not as a casualty, not as a statistic, as someone who chose how his story ended." Eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Did you know had a choice? Every human does. He could have stayed on the ship, could have taken an escape pod, but he chose to protect those civilians. He chose his death, and in that choice he found meaning." "He found nothing. He is dead." "Is he?" asked softly. "You're sitting here trying to understand what he did. 3,000 people are alive because of him. His choice ripples forward. That's not nothing." Was quiet. Then I felt something at Epsilon 7, when died, when fell, when the Indomitable exploded. I felt something I have never felt before. "What did you feel?" "Terror." The word came out as a whisper. Not fear of my own death. I felt terror of humanity." Nodded. "Tell me more." You should not be able to do what you do. The mathematics say you should lose. Your bodies are weak. Your weapons are inferior to most species. Your tactics waste resources on sentiment and emotion. But you win. You keep winning. And at Epsilon 7 I understood why. Why? Because you do not stop. A warrior calculates probability. If defeat is certain, we withdraw to fight another day. But humans looked up at her. Humans look at certain defeat and decide the calculations are wrong. You fight anyway, you die anyway, and somehow, impossibly, you win anyway. Not always, said. We lose often, but we try. That is what terrifies me. You try, regardless of odds, regardless of logic, you simply try. His voice grew stronger. Do you understand what that means? A species that does not acknowledge when it should quit. A species that treats mathematical certainty as a suggestion. You're afraid of what we might do. I am afraid of what you will do, when pushed, when desperate, when protecting something you love, met her eyes. I watched fight with one arm. I watched run at a creature 3 times his size. I watched soar a fly while crying. These are not the actions of rational beings. No, agreed. They're the actions of beings who love. Love, tested the word, told me humans fight to protect what makes life worth living, but you die in that fight. How is that logical? It's not about logic. It's about meaning. Life had meaning because he chose to give it meaning. Death mattered because he made it matter. They could have saved themselves, but then they wouldn't have been the people they wanted to be. Thought about the young Marine who had sat with him in the mess hall, who had shared stories about his home, who had been excited to learn about culture. Asked me if I was lonely, said quietly. He said emotions connect humans to each other, that without emotions I was alone even when surrounded by others. What did you answer? I said I had not considered that I might be alone, that I simply was. And now was quiet for a long time. Now I think he was right. I stood on that battlefield surrounded by the dead, 7 humans who had given everything, and I was alone, truly alone, because they were connected to something I could not understand. They died for each other, died for strangers, died for an idea that transcended logic. You're mourning them, said gently. I do not mourn, I am. Are you? She leaned forward. Because it sounds to me like you're feeling something you've never felt before, like something broke open inside you at Epsilon 7, like you learned what it means to lose someone you were starting to care about. Wanted to deny it, but he remembered smile, remembered thanking him for being kind, remembered the strange warmth in his chest when the young Marine had been excited to talk to him. I do not know what I feel, he admitted. That's okay. Feelings are confusing, especially new ones, but I'll tell you what I think you feel, smiled sadly. I think you miss them. I think you wish you could have saved them. I think you're angry at yourself for surviving when they didn't. I think you're terrified of humans because you saw what they become when they fight for love. And I think, for the first time in your life, you understand what it means to be vulnerable. The word hit like a physical blow, vulnerable. Vulnerability is weakness, he said automatically. Is it? Asked. Was vulnerable. He knew he could die and that knowledge terrified him, but he fought anyway, was vulnerable. He felt pain and fear and love, but he chose to face death rather than abandon those civilians. Were they weak? No. Then vulnerability isn't weakness. It's strength. It's the courage to feel things and act anyway. It's what makes us human. Sat with this, turned it over in his mind. The other survivors, he said, where are they? In another section of this station, recovering, wants to meet with you actually. He requested it specifically. Why? Because you were there when his people died. Because you fought beside them, because you survived together, stood. Come on, I'll take you to them. They walked through white corridors. Other passed them, glancing at with what might have been curiosity or concern. He ignored them. The human wing of the medical station was different. Someone had painted one wall with images of Earth. There were plants in containers. Music played softly from hidden speakers. "Why do you do this?" asked. "Why make your medical facilities pleasant?" Because healing isn't just physical. Humans heal better when they're surrounded by beauty, when they remember what they're healing for. They reached a common room. Inside, the survivors were gathered. Sat in a chair, his left arm in a medical brace. Jinnah was beside him, her face pale but determined. Sora sat on the floor, her hands shaking slightly, moved between them, checking vitals and offering comfort. They looked up when entered. For a moment, no one spoke. Then smiled. "Commander, good to see you on your feet." Did not know what to say. You survived." "Most of us did. Thanks to Squad buying us time. Thanks to you fighting beside them." Stood carefully. "Could you give us a moment?" Nodded and left. The door closed. I read your preliminary report. You want to stay with human forces." "Yes." "Why?" Met his eyes. "Because I need to understand what you are, what you become. I thought I understood war, but you showed me I do not. You showed me something I have never seen before." "Terror?" Jinnah asked quietly. "Yes, terror of what you are capable of. Terror of what you will do when pushed. Terror of standing beside a species that does not acknowledge when it should lose." Sora laughed softly, a broken sound. "That's the nicest way anyone's ever said we're crazy." "You are not crazy, you are something else, something I do not have words for." Looked at each of them. "At Epsilon 7 I watched fight with one arm. I watched run at death while smiling. I watched you fly while crying, Sora. You knew you were dying, but you did not stop." "Because we couldn't," Sora said. Her hands were still shaking. "Those transports needed time, so we gave them time even if it killed us." "But it did kill you. You simply did not stay dead." Smiled sadly. "Welcome to humanity, Commander. We're very bad at staying dead when there's work left to do." Came over and put her hand on his arm. He did not pull away. "You're in shock," she said gently. "You witnessed something that broke through your conditioning. Your mind is processing things it was never designed to process." "I do not understand these feelings." "None of us do at first, but you learn, you grow, you become more than you were." She squeezed his arm. "Let us help you. Let us teach you what we know. It won't be easy. Feeling things hurts, but it's worth it." Looked at these humans. These strange, fragile, impossible beings who had shown him terror and wonder in equal measure. "Teach me," he said. "Teach me to understand." And for the first time since Epsilon 7, something in his chest unclenched. Something warm and painful and alive. 6 weeks passed. Remained at the human medical station, officially classified as Observer and Cultural Exchange Liaison. The Empire approved his request for extended assignment. They wanted to understand what had changed their most decorated commander. Lived among the humans, he learned. In the mornings he attended sessions with. She taught him about human emotions, not just their definitions but their experience. She showed him art, music, poetry, things that served no tactical purpose but gave life meaning. "This piece," she said one day, showing him an ancient earth painting of a starry night, "was created by a human who suffered greatly, but he turned his pain into beauty. Studied the swirling colors. It is inefficient to create art while suffering. He should have focused on alleviating his suffering. Should he, then this wouldn't exist. His suffering would have been meaningless. Instead, he made something that brings joy to billions, which is more valuable." Had no answer. In the afternoons, he worked with in the medical bay. She taught him about human vulnerability, about bodies that break easily but heal remarkably, about minds that can be wounded but find ways to recover. "We're fragile," explained while treating a Marine's broken arm. "But fragility isn't weakness. It teaches us to value what we have, to protect each other. Strong things are rigid. Fragile things are flexible. They are strong. Our bodies can withstand extremes." "And yet you stood on that battlefield feeling something new. Which of you was rigid and which was flexible? She smiled. Strength and weakness aren't opposites, Commander, they're partners. In the evenings, sat with the survivors. They shared meals together, told stories. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they cried while talking about those who had not survived. Often spoke of, he was my friend for 15 years. We served together on 4 ships. I was at his wedding. I held his daughter when she was born. He had a daughter, asked. Yes, she's 7 now, living with her mother on New Terra. His voice was rough. I have to write her a letter, tell her how brave her father was, how he saved 3,000 people. Will it help her? Yes, not now maybe, but someday she'll read that letter and understand who her father was, what he stood for, why he made the choice he made. Looked at. We remember our dead, Commander. We tell their stories. It's how they continue. Sora taught about fear. She still had nightmares about the battle. Her hands still shook sometimes, but she was returning to duty anyway. I'm terrified, she admitted one day. They sat in the observation deck watching stars drift past. Every time I think about getting back in that cockpit, I want to run, want to hide, want to never fly again. Then why do you return? Because I'm a pilot, because people need me, because if I let fear win then and then all the others died for nothing. She turned to him. You asked me once how I was flying while crying. You remember? Yes. I'll tell you the truth. I wasn't brave. I was the most scared I've ever been. But I kept thinking about those transports full of families, full of children, and I decided that my fear didn't matter as much as their lives. She smiled sadly. That's not bravery, Commander. That's just love being stronger than fear. Jenna taught about purpose. She was already planning the next mission despite her injuries, despite her grief. You should rest, said one day, finding her reviewing tactical data at 2 in the morning. I'll rest when there aren't people who need protecting. She rubbed her eyes. Do you know how many colonies are under threat right now? How many civilians are waiting for help that might not come? You cannot save them all. No, but I can save some, and some is better than none. She looked at him. You think we're foolish, fighting battles we can't win, but we don't fight to win. We fight because it's right, because someone has to. Even if it kills you. Especially if it kills me, because then I die doing something that matters. That's more than most beings can say. Absorbed these lessons, he began to understand what he had witnessed at Epsilon 7, began to understand what humans were. One night he stood alone in his quarters. He had been writing his report to the Empire, not the tactical report, the real one, the one that explained what he had learned. He wrote, Humanity is not special because they are strong. They are special because they are weak and afraid and fight anyway. They feel pain but do not let it stop them. They lose friends but continue to make new ones, knowing they might lose them too. They face impossible odds but do not acknowledge the impossibility. He paused, then added, They are the most dangerous species I have encountered, not because of their weapons or their ships or their tactics, but because they have something we have never possessed, the ability to choose courage in the presence of fear, to choose love in the presence of loss, to choose hope in the presence of despair. And that makes them unstoppable. A knock on his door interrupted his writing, stood outside. Walk with me, the captain said. They walked through the station corridors, was quiet for a long time. Then, I received your formal request for permanent assignment. It's being processed. I hope it is approved. It will be, I made sure of it. Stopped at a viewing port. Outside, stars stretched into infinity. Commander, why do you really want this? Be honest. Looked at the stars. At Epsilon 7, I learned what terror feels like. For 47 years, I fought without fear. I thought that made me a superior warrior, but I was wrong. How so? Because I had never been tested. I had never stood beside beings who could teach me what true strength looks like. Your species is terrifying, Captain. Not because you are powerful, but because you are weak and refuse to acknowledge it. Because you feel pain and fear and loss and you fight through all of it. Because you love people you might lose and you love them anyway. And that terrifies you. Yes, but it also teaches me. I want to learn from humanity. I want to understand this thing you have that we lack. This ability to turn fear into fuel, to turn weakness into strength, to turn loss into purpose, turn to face. If the galaxy ever faces something that even humanity fears, I want to be there. I want to witness what you become when pushed beyond terror itself. Smiled, you know what I think, Commander. I think you're becoming human. That is impossible, I am. Human isn't a species, it's a choice. It's deciding that love matters more than logic, that meaning matters more than mathematics, that some things are worth dying for. Clapped him on the shoulder. You've already made that choice, my friend. You just don't know it yet. 2 weeks later, received his new orders. He was assigned to the human vessel Defiance under Captain's command. The ship was new, built to replace the Indomitable. It had the same crew, the same mission, to protect those who could not protect themselves. Stood in the hangar bay, watching the Defiance being prepared for launch. Found him there. Excited, she asked. I do not experience excitement. She smiled, don't you? Considered this. There was something in his chest, a warmth, anticipation. Perhaps he did feel something like excitement. The thought should have disturbed him. Instead, it felt right. Maybe I do, he admitted. Good, that's growth. Handed him a small package. This is for you, a gift. Opened it carefully. Inside was a memorial badge, the kind humans wore to honor fallen comrades. It bore 7 names, and the 4 others who had died on the ground at Epsilon 7. I cannot wear this, I am not human. You fought beside them, you survived when they didn't. That gives you the right, no, the duty to remember them. Pinned the badge to his uniform. Besides, you're more human than you think. On the day of departure, stood on the bridge of the Defiance. The crew was assembled. New Marines had joined to replace those lost, but some faces were familiar. In his captain's chair, Jinnah at tactical, Sara at the helm, in medical. And at the command station beside, not as an observer, as part of the crew. All systems ready, Minu's voice came over the comm. He had survived too, had insisted on transferring to the new ship. She's ready to fly, Captain. Looked around the bridge. Before we launch, I want to say something. We lost people at Epsilon 7. Good people, brave people. We carry their memory with us now. They showed us what it means to be human, to fight not because victory is certain, but because it's right. To protect the weak not because it's logical, but because it's who we are. We honor them by continuing their work. For the Indomitable, Jinnah said softly. For the Indomitable, the crew echoed. Turn to Sora, take us out. The ship lifted smoothly. Sora's hands were steady on the controls now, still healing but steady. As they cleared the station, looked at the memorial badge on his uniform. 7 names. 7 humans who had taught him terror and wonder, who had shown him that weakness could be strength, that fear could be courage, that love could be a weapon more powerful than any plasma cannon. Commander said, I need your tactical assessment of our patrol route. Pulled up the data, began his analysis, but something was different now. He was not just calculating probabilities and threat levels. He was thinking about the people they would protect, about the families who waited for their return, about the meaning behind the mission. He was, perhaps, thinking like a human. Route is acceptable, he reported. 3 colonies along the path need patrol presence. Estimated civilian population totaling 47,000. They will be glad to see us. Smiled. See, you're learning. The Defiance accelerated into the black. Behind them, the station faded into the distance. Ahead, the patrol route stretched across a dozen star systems. Somewhere out there, people needed help. Somewhere out there, battles waited to be fought. Touched the memorial badge. I understand now, he whispered. I understand why you fought, why you died, Why you smiled at death while protecting strangers. He looked at the human crew around him, at giving orders, at Jinnah monitoring threats, at Sara flying them toward the unknown, at new Marines learning their stations, at engineers keeping the ship running, at medical staff preparing for casualties that might come. All of them afraid, all of them vulnerable, all of them human. All of them the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. If the galaxy ever faces something that terrifies even humanity, said quietly, completing the thought he had written in his report, I want to be here. Not because humans are fearless, but because they are afraid and fight anyway. And when pushed beyond fear, they become something that even reality must accommodate. Heard him, nodded. Glad to have you with us, Commander. Glad to be here, Captain. And it was true. For the first time in 47 years was exactly where he wanted to be, standing beside humans, ready to face whatever came next, ready to feel terror and fight through it, ready to be weak and strong at the same time, ready to be human, even if he was not. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The stars stretched into lines. And Commander, veteran of 16 campaigns, felt something new stirring in his crystalline chest. Hope, the most dangerous emotion of all. Because hope made humans unstoppable. And now, perhaps, it would make him unstoppable too.